I think it's mostly like funding.
That's where I got confused when I started talking about.
Yeah, there's a timeline for funding spent by.
Oh, thank you. Could you give another page? I think it's. That's really my perspective. It's like. Good evening, calling the 22nd, 2026 Park Authority Board and Committee meetings to order. I don't think, Laura, we don't have anybody online yet, do we? And we're recording at this point.
Yes.
Thank you. And so Linwood, you're first up.
All right, I'd like to bring the Planning and Development Committee to order, and I actually did not ask who be Torsia.
It's me and my team. Good evening, everyone. I'm Torsha Bhattacharya. I'm the Division Director for Stewardship and Planning. Before we get into the Natural Cultural Land Acquisition presentation, I just wanted to take a quick minute to introduce our newest member of our team, our Park Planning Branch Manager, Tony. Tony, if you want to say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tony De Lorenzo. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Looking forward to meeting you and working closely to deliver a better park system.
Tony just missed the awesome opportunity to present about the parks on March 11th that we went. So next time around.
Towards that closet.
Still not. Or I can just say next slide.
Does the laser work on it? Just the battery. Laser works.
Yeah, it's just.
Pretty good signals.
Sorry, we can just say next slide. There we go. Hey, so today we are going to talk about natural cultural resources and land acquisition, bond funding, timeline for this. This is our third in the line of bond presentation, April 22nd. Next time we come back to you, it will be an overall package on May 13th to talk about the overall bond strategy, and then moving to June 9th for the BOS approval, and then July 2026 when we'll present the 27 work plan, and a year from that date, July 2027, we'll be presenting the FY 28 work plan for your approval. Next slide. I want to take a step back and talk about all of the things that natural cultural resources do. So the reason I'm going to talk about this a little bit is because what you see today is a snapshot. So this is a subset of all of the projects that we do. And also it is a snapshot, a sampling of the funding. So we are only going to focus on the projects that are going to be done using bond funding. For our cultural resources, that includes heritage conservation and archaeology. We do archaeological surveys, cemetery preservation, reporting, development review, but also work for the whole Fairfax County as a whole. For our natural resource, there's non-native invasive management. There's also the bamboo program exclusively looking at how to mitigate the impacts of bamboo, reforestation, restoration projects, and of course, investing in natural capital, and that also includes development review, a significant time on that. For our heritage conservation program, we look at the resident curator program. Again, most of you know about the award-winning program that we have. We actually monitor sites, we manage some of our sites, and along with that, we create treatment plans and documentations and reports. So all of this, like the whole universe of things that the staff do are funded by several funding sources. One is the bond that we're going to talk about today. There's a county construction fund, there's donations, grants, telecom, EEP, several sources of funding. Next slide. You're going to focus on that today. The beloved bag of rocks. So today we are going to talk about the natural cultural land acquisition rock. Next slide. For this whole bond cycle presentation, the few things that we have tried to keep in mind is make sure whatever we are presenting is in alignment with our strategic plan, master planning efforts, but also for this specific presentation that you'll see today, it's the natural resource management plan and the cultural resource management plan. They're kind of underlying all of the projects and determining what the focus of each of these branches are going to be. And all of the assessment that is being done is very data oriented, data-based. Again, this is the same slide that you've seen before, the natural cultural rock. It consists of planning, designing, and construction of projects. And this specifically caters and talks to the stewardship mission that we have. It supports resource management plans for both cultural and natural management plans and other county-wide initiatives like the bamboo program, county-wide archaeology work that we do. The total rock size is $12 million. That's what we are requesting for during this presentation. Next slide. This is an overview of what John, Jeff, and we are going to be covering today. For archaeology, we're requesting about $2.8 million. Jeff will go through what exactly that will cover. Heritage conservation, I'll go through what the 2.6 million request will cover. John will cover the natural resource ask for $2.6 million. All of that adds up to a total of $8 million, and the remaining $4 million will then move into land acquisition. The reason we are putting all of this in one pot is a lot of the times when we acquire land, it is because of protecting natural resources, so that some of the natural resource funding might be able to be used in the land acquisition funding pot, or vice versa. We can do something else, like it can flow into archaeology work or natural resource work, so that there is a little bit of fluidity between each of these interconnected programs that we are running, for a total of $12 million. So with that, next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Jeffrey Alvey, Archaeology and Collections Branch Manager. Good to see you. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. So the work I'm going to be talking about basically falls into two categories, and this is the first of those categories, which we're calling inventory and assessment. So the way we look at this is that by engaging in this proactive work in this way, by taking on phase 1 cultural resource surveys of some of our parklands, we're able to streamline the review process and provide some very important data up front that can inform these three areas. So land use planning and future development, stewardship, education, and interpretation, and then also allows us to identify some areas for heightened protections in the future. Next slide, please. So these are the three factors that are really driving the way we chose the particular projects that we chose for this bond cycle. So we're looking at these three things: geographic equity among districts, while prioritizing our resource-based parks, and also prioritizing parks where upcoming development is planned. Next slide. So this just gives you a sense, a couple of charts to compare. So the first one shows sort of our current state of affairs as it relates to these three things. So our parks are resource-based parks, where we have the whole parks that have been surveyed, or we have partial parks surveyed, or we have parks that are entirely unsurveyed. And so if you compare the pie chart on the left to the one on the right, you basically see where we stand today versus where we would stand if funded. So next slide, please. And not forgetting about our local parks, even though we are prioritizing resource-based parks, we are also proposing some work at some of our local parks And so again, you can see here from this pie chart, sort of where we stand currently in terms of our surveys of local parks. We would, we deem these to be understudied in terms of cultural resources relative to their use.
I'm sorry. Everybody knows here that I'm always interested in what we would do if we had more money. So can you just take 15 seconds and pop back to that last slide?
Previous slide, please.
Thank you.
And actually, can I ask a question?
Sure.
When it says survey, what is that? What does it include?
Black, which one?
Yeah, where it's been, for instance, the phase one survey versus the partial park survey, like what kinds of things is that?
It's just kind of what phase one, phase two entail.
What is a phase one
What
survey?
is phase one, phase two entails, so phase one, you can think of it as the part of the process where we go out into the world and identify cultural resources. We don't know what's there, so we're trying to answer that question of what is there. Once you identify resources, you still have this process of determining whether or not they are significant. And that's what we refer to as phase two. So phase one is survey, phase two is what we generally call significance testing. So we're basically just investigating the site a little bit more than we did at phase one to try and identify things like its depositional integrity. Are there cultural deposits there that could tell us something important about the past? Get a bigger sample of the artifact collection to have a better representative sample to inform on the kinds and lengths of durations that people lived at that particular site. So you could just think of phase one as sort of the preliminary, let's find out what's there, and phase two is to let's figure out whether this is important or not.
And sometimes phase one leads to phase two. So we don't know if phase two would be needed or not. We go in with phase one and then we find that we have to get in and do phase two.
Sometimes we don't find anything, or sometimes we find things where it's just obvious at the very beginning that it's not important and phase two is not needed.
Sorry, just to understand, because nothing here says phase two, I see, right? You have phase one and you have partial. So you only do a phase two survey if you've done a phase one survey and you've gone through the process you just described, right?
That's correct.
So how of the 23% or 34%, I guess of the 23%, how many have you actually done the phase two survey of?
I'm not sure what that number would be.
And this plan does not include increasing the number of phase two surveys. It's just trying to do the baseline stuff, right?
That's right.
So partial park survey.
We want to just kind of put a disclaimer in there is because the reason I'm saying is when you see the total table there, we don't exactly say the parks that we are going to work on, because if one park we are doing a phase one survey and it requires phase two work, we might have to not do all of the parks in the list. We don't have the money, then we'll do phase one and phase two. But the first thing is doing the phase one.
Which
Yes.
just speaks to the changed work plan process we're talking about anyway.
Well, I mean, yes, because we wouldn't turn and say, oh, you found, see, I'm gonna.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that
Washington's pipe, or whatever it is, you can't investigate because we don't have any money, right? That's at that point, like we might have the first, right?
it just reinforces.
Yes, 100%.
Anything else?
Thank you.
George Washington's pipe.
I sometimes it's chair, sometimes it's like it's his house.
At least it wasn't another rock.
Okay, I think you can advance two ahead. So this year, I talked about the two categories of work earlier, with inventory and assessment being the first. And so this is the second category, cemetery preservation. So this approach is an ongoing effort. It derives out of the One Fairfax policy and the goals that were laid out in the equity impact plan, specifically to expand opportunities for stakeholder involvement and to provide expanded Black history offerings at our sites. And so we're talking about basically 15 cemeteries on parkland that are requiring care. And we're proposing ground penetrating radar survey, some of these to detect unmarked graves and monuments, as well as to detect unmarked graves and then monument preservation work. And so the three that we're talking about for this sort of last category of effort, the GPR survey and the monument preservation are Frying Pan Farm Park Baptist Meeting House Cemetery, Hughes Family Cemetery, and Moss Family Cemetery.
Can I just, you're doing a great job. And just the board, I just want to put a finer point on the first slide that Torsia did about the different ways that we can fund things. And this is one of those things where everything is like important, nothing's not important. But where we say that we steward things, like this is one of the biggest stewarding, like we're stewarding, like, you know, human remains and cemeteries. And so, you know, and generally speaking, when we talk about the push and pull of having to prioritize things over another, this is one of the things where it's like, it's in the, like, everybody's talking about it. A lot of people don't. Peak Cemetery, it's a good example. The Raglan Road Cemetery is a good example where it was like tree covered, vine covered, nobody owned it. It was between two houses, nobody owned it. And so Supervisor Alcorn is like, and the community, the neighbors, everybody was like, we got to do something. Everybody agreed. Nobody knew who the owner was. It was an absentee owner. So it's like, okay, Park should, you know, take it on, which we should, to steward it and clean off the gravestone. So this is one of those ones where, regardless of the CIP, if there was if there's a magic wand of like, oh, let's try to figure out, like, figuring out a plan for this to not have to compete with the GPR and other stuff using other funds is really, I think, is very sort of important, because we shouldn't have to balance between stewarding cemeteries and doing phase one studies. It should always be, but we got to figure out how to grow this pot with the county. So this is my little soapbox thing about that. So let's continue.
Slide, please. So this is just sort of our summary wrap-up table, just to give you a quick glance of the things I've talked about here, and sort of how it breaks down. So you see in the fourth column over the number of projects that we're talking about, so what that represents, and then just the various details associated with each of these line items. So I'll give you a moment to digest that, but I believe that's all for me.
Okay, next up, we're going to quickly talk about heritage conservation. So heritage conservation, next slide, please, Laura. The purpose of this whole heritage conservation branch that we have is preserving the Fairfax County's historic resources, and I like to talk about it as anything above the ground, and what Jeff talked about was anything under, below the ground. So for heritage conservation, main purposes, as we have laid out in our cultural resource management plan, is to steward historic structures and cultural resources across park system, preserving irreplaceable assets that reflect our county's history and identity. It also ensures that these historic structures are maintained, stabilized, and protected for now and also for future generations, and learn from them. It leverages strategic investment, like in the case of the resident curator program, so that's to prevent loss and vandalism, but also make sure that we are protecting this structure for the county. And as I had mentioned before, we operate this nationally recognized award-winning resident curator program, which pairs very nicely the preservation side of things with a public-private partnership. Next slide. For the way we are looking at creating the subset of projects that we are going to be undertaking in the 6 years for this bond cycle. As you can see in the pie chart, the number of sites that are managed by this branch consists of managed sites that are mostly resource management and interpretation. Some are leased, which is part of the resident curator program, and the monitored site, which is inspected weekly by our branch staff. But also these are the structures that are not, they don't have any people living in there, and they're most subject to vandalism and disrepair. So as you can see, monitored sites, they represent the largest share of the portfolio, and they're unoccupied, so do not have ongoing investment, unlike a resident curator program, and thereby has higher risk of deterioration. Next slide, please. In this table, what you see is nicely laid out a conditions versus significant prioritization process. The first column talks about the significance criteria. So architecturally, is that structure significant? in terms of events, in terms of the people, the story that it tells? Does it just include the local history, regional, national? What kind of significance does it have? Archaeology related significance. What is the listing status in terms of being listed in the inventory of historic sites, National Register or not? And then after we figure out what the significance is, we also look at the conditions. So conditions might go from anywhere ranging from good to just demo it because it cannot be salvaged anymore. So that's the rating scale that the heritage conservation staff use to figure out which are the structures that need the most attention, but also which will give us the most value for the money that we are putting into these preservation and restoration projects. Next slide.
Back up.
Go back one slide, please.
I'm having trouble understanding it. I'm sorry. So does it give higher priority to the items that are in good condition or bad condition or somewhere in the middle?
In the middle. So if you see the red block, so something that is already, it's great in terms of significance, say archaeologically or architecture value is high, and it's also great condition. That's already taken care of. So we are not spending money in renovating or preserving or restoring that type of property. The property that needs the most care is, it is significant, but it's not actually in the greatest condition. So if you don't take care of it now, it's going to fall into disrepair. So it's the middle part which checks off the significance box, but does not check off the good quality, good condition box.
So if you were going to describe, with the matrix that you've designed here, the most important and the least important, the most important is significant historic significance or archaeological significance or whatever, and in good enough shape to preserve it.
Yes.
That's the highest. And the lowest would be little historical significance and bad shape.
Perfect.
And
Yes.
with,
So if you do an X and Y axis, that's how you'll do like high significance, average condition is, or good to average condition needs the most immediate care. And then low significance, close to demolition is like the least that you'll put in terms of funding.
just out of curiosity, and this is almost a joke, some people will get it, some people won't. Something that's in pretty good shape, say really good shape, that has very low historical significance. Is that just somewhere in the middle, or is
Yes,
that like?
that kind of floats in the ether, but no, it is somewhere in the middle.
Just,
But as you can.
it's not on the low side or the high side.
So basically, then that gets into the list of priority projects. So as we are able to check other things off, if we get to that, we get to that. So it basically is. in
But you
this
know
whole
what we're
list.
talking about.
Yes. And we have a huge list. I mean, Stephanie can show you a whole Excel sheet
Yeah.
list of projects, but then we only can get to so many projects in this one bond cycle. So, and that's why different or variety of diverse sources of funding helps in maintaining more of those.
Yeah, the editorially just, my opinion is we need to do a better job with the residential curator program, because that's opportunities where we don't necessarily have to spend. Sorry for the editorial. Anyway,
No worries. And I think that's such an amazing program. As a county running it, a lot of states have it, but as a county, we are unique to be running that program. And we have good plans about it. And Nigel and I have spoken at length to make sure that we are highlighting the resident curator program much
hopefully
more.
we can figure out ways to tweak it and improve it, because we have a situation where a house is in too good a shape. There's not enough to do to it to drag it into the
Yeah.
residential curator program. So we have to wait till the thing half falls down before we can put it in the residential curator program. And we need to figure out a way to overcome that.
Yes, so we're also thinking of going like RCP light, where, because, the number of years that the resident stays is directly proportional to the fair market value. So we'll have to figure something out that works, but we need to develop that model. We don't yet have that, but we'll have to work
But we
on.
do have a model that will bring money to us for sure if we execute it. In this instance.
So, but remember with the resident curatorship program that we, in the last couple of ones, we do have to put in significant resources. It's not free. So it's not like resident curatorship is the silver bullet, not spending money. We've had, how much do we end up Mount Gilead? Do you know off the top of your head?
We have that. If you can go move a couple of slides.
While they're doing that.
Your point.
No,
Well, then.
while they're doing that, it's kind of to my next, just again.
Yes. So 350,
Just to make how much?
350.
350. Just to make it like clear, stewardship, again, historic resources, and it's very important. And I say to people all the time, and I say this with love, historic buildings, when you say you're gonna steward historic buildings, you dig a hole in front and you just drop money in it. Like, that's because you have no idea what's gonna happen when you open up the walls, right? And you're chasing and you make the decision at the beginning. And so it does cost money to steward, and you don't know, and it's very hard to land the plane on the, to say, they can't come to me and say it's gonna cost X amount of dollars. They could be off by 400%, when they start taking walls down. So the amount that you think that you're gonna do at the beginning might end up being like two. I don't think that you guys thought you were gonna spend that much on Mount Gilead, at the beginning, and it ended up being $350,000. So it's worth it. My
The
point
roof
being, it's worth it, but that's, yes.
is a much more significant replacement than we thought would. But also making sure we are procuring the right type of material, the look of the material, all of that adds to the cost too.
Is that just the roof for Mount Gilead? Did that include the barn? Or how much did we spend on that one?
Call.
I don't know how much the barn,
To take that,
but I think that was the curator that took care of the barn. later.
No, that was
No.
prior to this.
Okay, I don't know.
I can't recall.
And move back a little bit, sorry. Just wanted to. Okay, so remember the good enough condition and significant buildings that we were talking about, structures that we were talking about, those are our focus. Dividing that into grades, again, in fair but declining condition are grade 3 properties, but they retain sufficient integrity to preserve. It also has some community level significance and represents the most effective point for our restoration work. Next slide, please. The type of projects that we are requesting funding for heritage conservation, the first one is developing the building envelope and systems preservation. Second is infrastructure and stabilization work, and that can vary widely depending on what we find, and then related plans and reports. The first one entails protecting structures from water damage, intrusion, environmental damage over time. It also addresses critical systems to prevent these kind of deterioration that happens over time, and thereby extends the usable life of these historic structures. For infrastructure and stabilization work, we are trying to stabilize these structures that are at risk of structural failures. So there's that needs to happen really quick, really fast. It also addresses foundation issues if we find something and drainage impacting buildings, which eventually end up costing a lot more. So we want to get to that sooner rather than later, and prevents, of course, costly future expenses. The plans and reports that are part of this whole work, actually, we need those treatment plans because that will define what the cost considerations are when we are looking at even a resident curator program. They need to know what they're getting into. So we make sure that the house is habitable. So we put in some investment, but the rest of it is up to the curator to do. So for having an estimate of that, we need to develop some of these treatment plans. It also positions properties for future use because that is all a part of a formula. So this is a fair market value. How many years does the resident need to stay here for us to recoup that value in terms of investment that they put in these properties? So we need that report to understand that. And then, of course, it's a necessary program for the county requires us to do it before we head into the resident curatorship programs. Next slide is, we just went over this slide, just an example that we go into a project thinking it'll cost X dollars, but then we find more and now the cost has gone up. So this one, additional repairs were needed after we started the project. Next slide, please. And this one is the last slide for heritage conservation, broken down into the task that I just described, totaling $2.6 million. With that, I'll pass it over to John to talk about natural resources.
A general question on just the heritage piece for a second. In the past, we've been having bond discussions. There's been significant concern about preservation of our collections and the need for investments and stuff there.
Are you talking about the collections facility or?
Well, there's been discussion about the facility, but the need for the facility because we needed to do better maintaining our collections.
Yes.
Is that budget for that kind of stuff out of the piece of the bond we were just talking?
And Nigel, do you?
The budget we just had a conversation before about the collections facility. The budget, trying to figure out so we had still in the bridge funding, 6.5, 6.9, 6.2
For design,
dollars. Say again?
for design and construction.
Design and construction. It's not enough to do a facility. So right now we're looking at like in the 12s to 17 million dollars. And as we know, with the bond being tight, so right now where we're talking about is if we can possibly get something for 6.9, short term, if there are other options that we can be looking at about using other facilities, possibly talking about block grants or earmarks, not block grants.
Very, very active conversation.
Yes.
Very active.
Well,
Find a solution.
which was part of what I'm asking is, but also then the question, if the resources for doing it come out of the piece of the bond we were just talking about, and we don't know when we're gonna get the facility. I'm just wondering, I guess I'm not answering. Do we have the resources to preserve what we have until the facility is ready? In other words, if it's gonna be 10 years to get the facility or 5 years to get the facility.
Are you asking about putting that's
That's
all
all I'm asking, does that come out of the piece of?
currently in that 12 million?
But
You're asking about the
would that
transition,
be where it
protecting
was?
the current
Yeah,
inventory,
I just-
collections inventory.
We have this issue about
We have a
protecting all the stuff we have. We need money to do that. If that's not in our bond discussion at this point, would that be in the part we were just talking about, in the bucket, the rock,
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, it would be, we would add money to, what are we calling Meyer New Construction? What are we calling the $10 million, anybody? The $10 million rock, what's it called?
Construction.
You could say
Yes, it wouldn't be the whole parks, it would be in the $9 million, $10 million new amenities thing. You could put it here. So that would be a more.
I wasn't thinking about building it.
Yeah, he's still talking about,
The
we have a
bridge-
collection today.
Preservation.
How do we preserve and protect that until we have a collections facility to house it? Is that funding covered in the bond or is it covered in operational?
I'm just concerned that we've talked about, we need this. It's taking so long that we don't create a situation where the stuff we have deteriorates, gets hurt.
Yeah, so I think that right now in the conversation, and this is a conversation that we can, have with $12 million. Like if you guys all want to put $12 million in for the facility, we can do that also. It's just taking away from the rocks, is where we find it. But the 6.9, yes, like that's part of the.
Before we have a facility, if we said, oh, we just need better containers and more shelves somewhere.
Yes, we have $6.2 million that we can go into.
That's where that comes from.
It could go to that.
So right now we have our collections in three different locations. One of those facilities is in really good shape for the most part. The other two are in okay shape. Our curators are doing the absolute best they can with the resources they have. It would be a decision to what degree we're able to, I guess in this interim state, further stabilize those two spaces that aren't as well and bring them up to standards. But that would then, of course, still kick the can down the road for us to get a collections.
No, I know. I just.
So what we're trying to do, I hear you, what we're trying to do is see if we can use the resources we have now to kind of solve the problem long-term. But the backup is, if we can't, then yes, we'll need to go ahead and take care of what we have where it is until we can get a facility that is using quality grade.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does.
We're actively working.
Yes. And with that, we'll start discussing natural resource.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all again. John Burke with Natural Resources. So I'll be talking about one section of the natural resource branch. The bond funds the active restoration, heavy lift restoration program elements, the Helping Our Land Heal program within the natural resources branch. So topics around like the IMA program, invasive plant management, plan review, even our ecological maintenance program. Those are all separately funded, bamboo, all separately funded. This is strictly for, again, those heavy lift restorations, the reforestation work that is ongoing and needed in the picture on the left, as well as the completed meadow restoration work on the picture on the right. So by their nature, these projects are much longer than a typical project we might fund in the CIP. That we use the full 5-year expenditure timeline for each of these types of projects, as well as other ones that we engage in, to ensure that we are fully completing the restoration to the best of our abilities, getting the plants above browse height and necessary for deer, conducting necessary groundwater monitoring for work in wetlands, and ensuring that the seed mix is coming up and invasive plants are being controlled. Often that takes 5 years in order to make sure it's done correctly, so that when it goes into the hands of our ecological upkeep group, it's in as good a state as possible for keeping it going. To be clear, though, because the 5-year implementation period of these projects, we will have quite a few less than some of the other groups we discussed this evening, just because they are larger, longer projects that require more funding per project. So we wouldn't have like 20 or so. We'd have, just a handful per bond cycle with significant investment in each. Next slide, please. When we're talking about our selection process, there's a few variables that we use for selecting restoration, project location, and type. Primarily, or the first cut is looking at things that we have to do as an agency. If there are any established MOUs that are required with other agencies or groups that mandate us to do restoration work. For example, if there's roadway construction, we sign an agreement, we would be required to do that restoration work as part of that. Those get knocked to the top of the list because we have an obligation to do so. Similarly, if there are significant safety risks or obligations that we have to uphold from for the protection of the public perspective that a restoration could be associated with, those also get knocked to the top of the list. So that would be things like dredging projects, for example. We would work with our civil engineers within the agency to team up on those efforts and help with the terrestrial restoration component of those projects. There could also be active resource damage that we have received mitigation for that we're trying to prioritize, and then immediate repair of encroachments, which honestly is minimal. We haven't had too many cases like that within the CIP, but primarily for this session, we'll have some pretty big ticket items that are required for mandatory reasons due to obligations for keeping the public safe, or for MOUs or other agreements signed with different agencies. Ecological significance is, of course, important as well. We are looking at protecting rare communities, expanding them, or providing buffers around them. So in many cases, we'll be seeking out data that from our monitoring efforts, looking at where we can enhance natural communities throughout parkland, whether that's meadows or wetland improvements or forest restorations, trying to improve habitat connectivity or serving a specific target species or group of species. For example, at Poplar Ford, we were working on a meadow restoration, which you'll see me cite a lot, working towards protection and habitat enhancement for grasshopper sparrows and other meadow breeding birds. So these are things that we're looking at as well with site selection. Third, access and durability. And what I mean by that is, can we physically get into this park and do this project? There's many instances where we've got streams, stream valley parks that need work, but the access is just too limited, or we would do too much damage if we brought in a skid steer or trucks or things like that. And the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze as far as how much we have to pay to establish access and then conduct the restoration. Further, we look for long-term feasibility for upkeep and maintenance. So if we are working in a park that is surrounded on all sides by neighbors who have invasive plants that are pressing into that system, we will consider that because that's going to make long-term maintenance a challenge. It doesn't knock those parks out from consideration, but it does indicate that we'll have to be spending more money long-term on those projects. So when we can, we're looking for projects that are simple to implement with good access and a manageable scope. Fourth, continuing prior investment. So this really means just expanding on or enhancing what we've already established restoration wise. That could be expanding existing meadows. That could be enhancing reforestations in response to beech leaf disease or expanding the footprint of prior approved projects to handle things like beech leaf disease. For example, Pohick Stream Valley would be an example of something like that. And again, it helps us build that nexus that we're focusing on that we can then build out from. I know you hear me talk about that a lot, but when we're selecting these projects, especially because invasive plants are continual pressure on our restorations, it's good to establish a central point and build out as we can. So we're always considering that as well. And then, of course, leverage and visibility. So in the previous bond cycles, we were directed and we did complete restorations with an emphasis on managed sites and sites with an outreach driver. And we still consider that for our selection process. But we're also looking at things like what is the volunteer support for this restoration in terms of folks who have already committed or signed on to conduct ecological maintenance in this park, whether that's invasive plant control or wildlife monitoring post-restoration. Whenever we can find that support from the stakeholders and build that efficiency within our project, we also consider that for project selection. Of note too, when we're talking about ecological significance and many of these other factors, we're assessing this as part of our regional natural resource management plans. So that's also weighing into the selection process. Next slide, please. So the agency natural resource management plans are still in development. We have one that's complete. We have a written and completed draft with the graphic designer for the northern area plan, and we are completing our last field season for the central southern plan. These are internal guidance documents with sensitive data related to rare plants, rare species, rare natural communities that we use as sort of a touchstone or guiding element for our selection process. These efforts involve broad field monitoring, both from Park Authority staff as well as hired contractors through the state, so hired biologists through the Department of Conservation and Recreation, as well as other parties to not only inventory what we have, but also to provide recommendations and priorities for restoration projects and land acquisition. As I mentioned, the Western area program is done, Northern area program is written, and the the Central and Southern plans are underway field work wise. We are looking at these as well as the overall spread and dispersion of ecological restorations in the county. While not a driving priority, it's something that I've kind of put my thumb on the scale in recent years to ensure that we are giving some consideration to the distribution of these restorations within Park Authority property, particularly within various supervisor districts, so that anybody in Fairfax County can feel proud about ecological restoration in their area. And I believe we've completed a restoration, or we have one underway in every supervisor district as of last year.
I'm gonna pause you for just 1 second.
Yes.
I'm gonna read Faisal just started. That way he can vote on that.
So I'm Tim Hackman. Virginia law authorizes the remote participation of board members, provided that a policy exists to ensure that such remote participation is consistently administered. This board has approved policy 111. Any such remote attendance must be approved by the board as long as a physical quorum of the board is actually present, which it is. Voices of the remote participants are able to be heard by everyone in the room, and remote participation comports with the policy. So first is verification to remote participants' voices clear, audible, appropriate volume for the meeting room, and confirmation of their location. So Faisal Khan, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
Yes, I'm in my car in Falls Church, Virginia.
I move that Faisal Khan's voice may be adequately heard in this location.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Verification of the remote participants' physical absence comports with the policy. Pursuant to the Park Authority's Policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings, I move that FISACOM be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy adopted and a physical quorum is present here at the Heritage Building Park Authority Boardroom.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So thank you. You may continue.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. So I'm going to use the next series of pictures to demonstrate the value of this project enhancement or expansion policy protocol approach that we'd like to take to emphasize the value of why I'm proposing expanding or enhancing previously approved restorations. I've received feedback from not just the natural resources, if you will, because we are conducting and starting new monitoring efforts on our completed restorations to see how they're evolving over time. In particular, looking for target organisms that are showing up in response to the restorations. But I'm also considering feedback that I'm hearing from the team, specifically our ecological upkeep maintenance team, because when we talked about that priority list of projects, one of the considerations is our ability to maintain it long term. And what I'm hearing is by expanding our existing restorations in some cases, in addition to building out less fragmented, larger restorations, there are also a lot of efficiencies when it comes to maintenance of the sites, whether that's conducting prescribed burns, conducting mowing efforts, or even for long-term monitoring efforts. Not having to mobilize to multiple different sites can speed up that work, make it more efficient. And as our inventory of completed projects grows, it's something that I'm thinking about more and more because we have a growing list of restorations now. And I'm giving more thought to how to the feasibility of maintaining these things long-term and not stretching ourselves too thin across the landscape. So we'll look at Poplar Ford. I know I bring it up a lot, but you can click slowly, like 5 times. And if you look, you can see while we're getting less forested areas, these are meadow restorations. So what we're losing are successional red cedars and primarily invasive autumn olive and other species. So if you want to click again, you can see this was, thank you. This was the bond funded or the initial bond funding for Poplar Ford. If you will click again, you can see we expanded up there to the northwest as well as more funding was awarded. And if you click one more time, an additional expansion, this time through the EIP to the northwest. And I think we've got one more. And then how it sits today. And if you can see it up in the very north part of the park, there's a little donut hole of trees and meadow there at the top that we're starting to work on as well. This park has seen the return of a number of different bird species that we weren't seeing here previously. And we're able to maintain this sustainably through our burn and mowing efforts, as well as periodic treatment for invasive plants. And I think demonstrates a success story of how establishing an initial foothold, in this case, meadow restoration, and then expanding it can really create a great asset, not only for the natural community, but for the people that use this park as well. Next slide, please. So overall, this is what we're looking at as far as project type breakdown. These project types will certainly shift as we assess our potential restoration opportunities and make decisions based on what the best treatment is for a given site. So we may be looking at a large site that we initially thought we were going to reforest, but in turn, after some assessments, decided to be better restoration and vice versa. One of the big outliers you'll see here is dredging. And that's for a specific pond that we identified that had a quite obvious need for dredging improvements that would benefit both the natural community, overall safety, as well as the outreach opportunities for the site that we're considering. And that would be conducted in partnership with civil engineers in Park Authority, with Natural Resources taking a role on the restoration and landscape design components of it.
Which facility is that?
We're considering Hidden Pond for that dredging. Next slide, please. That's it for me.
Okay, so now moving into the last part of the presentation, land acquisition. Next slide, please. the current land acquisition method, the way we get land or acquire land within our inventory is through proffers from development. That's happening, land dedication, land donation when folks donate land to us, and also by the good old method of purchasing land. Next slide. We need to develop a land acquisition strategy that pays attention to our recreational needs, our natural and cultural preservation and restoration needs, and combine that into a unified strategy. Currently, we are just working off as things come to us. We decide on a one-off basis whether to accept it or not. That's not a really not a strategy, so as to speak. So we want to make sure that that becomes a priority in the next year. So we develop a land acquisition open space strategy and accordingly move forward with that. Next slide. There could be different acquisition needs. There could be a piece of property that becomes available that is very significant in terms of its the building structures on it, in terms of the archaeology resources or the natural resources, or it could be a property that becomes available in an urban area which is built out, but it's perfect for having recreational uses. So depending on what our focus is, our land acquisition strategy, which hopefully will have a weighted scale of our priority at that time, will help us determine whether it is a good or not such a good acquisition for our purposes. So again, we're trying to move towards something that we can assess and create a baseline and then move from there rather than doing it on parcel by parcel basis.
Your initial example was one of being reactive. Something comes up.
Currently, that's how we are working.
So right now we're reactive. Somebody has a piece of property, whatever.
Yes.
The implication of changing is to be proactive.
Yes.
Does that mean you're going to be going out and looking for specific properties to try to acquire?
Yes,
Right.
developing relationships with the market, like what's in the market. Currently, we are not doing that. We are not as much out in the field talking to possible donors that we could maybe look at. That would you be interested? Not now, maybe in 10 years, in 15 years, donating the property. So we are not doing those active relationship building that could actually get to where we want to be. We are just sitting and letting the donations come to us. So yes, ideally we'd be more out in the field, out in the market, having a pulse on what is the property that has become available on top of it, and go at it. Because now what currently we are doing is other people talking to us, whether it's coming from the county or even private individuals interested in donation. So yes, we're hoping that we'll be able to flip it where we are.
I'm very intrigued by the idea of being because we'll talk about, oh, this park, look at, this fills a gap and does a bridge to do the whatever. Going out and identifying those. And so does that mean that you would be doing some kind of an assessment overall of what, in other words, this isn't just a process of how to evaluate an offer that randomly comes in. You're going to say,
Those should be, with Tortia's, you should have a strategy. So for all of the stuff that we're talking about, as opposed to, I guarantee you 99% of things that come ad hoc are people want to get rid of it. And can we do so? The question is, can we do something with it? As opposed to kind of what we spend all this time and we hire all these really smart people to do things like PARE and the PROSA analysis. So now the next thing is, if we have a gap, where are the parcels that we could put together? We're not talking about single family homes. Is there a large piece of land that's in an area that could create a park that could solve that problem? That needs to be on an acquisitions list. So we need to know. So when that comes up, we need that for this thing that we've identified. We have a piece of land, and I can say this because I'm an ecologist, the land with the last left-handed orchid. I just made that up. That's not actually a thing.
That's real.
Right. That John Burke and all of his natural resources he can project like unique terrestrial types, right? So is there a piece of property that we don't own that we're not conserving, that's out there, that's at risk of being developed, that we lose a resource? We should know where that is now and put it on the list of going out there and asking for it. We do GPR, ground penetrating radar. And, I think you probably don't want to stop at the parkland boundary if in fact it continues. So maybe it's like, oh, listen, there's a parcel here that we really need to acquire because we need to figure out this whole story that we have to stop at the line. We should know those things as opposed to,
So.
Yeah.
Does that mean, theory says that then we're developing a list of those places that I assume would be a closed session kind of list? We wouldn't.
yeah, so there's,
We're
so,
not going to be sharing the.
well,
Jack.
We're not
yes.
be sharing
In the county, it shouldn't, it can, but sometimes
Right, I'm
it's
just,
good to be part of a master plan. So the way we did it, I don't like to say what we did, in the part of we do the rest of the master plan, we'd identify this parcel, it would go on the master plan as potential parkland. What that benefits when you say that, or it doesn't have to be one parcel, what that benefits then, I don't think we do that here. What that benefits is now they can't subdivide because it's already been identified, the use is park use. So we've identified it as part of it. So that's one of the options, but in closed session, it's good to one of the things that we do is like, I would say, John, give me your top 5 list. They're not or top 10. They're not on, they're not up for sale right now. So we can talk about them in general so that we know, so that next time when it comes in, we'll talk about the top 10 in closed session amongst, everybody will have heard about them. So when it comes up, it's, oh, that property we talked about that one time. Of course we want it, not like it's new information every single time. But what it also does is it allows you all, or all of us, to check in on those top 5. Like if we have one top priority of acquisition and I have 1.5, I'm just gonna make up that number because we know that $1.5 million left of acquisitions. I come to you and say, I want to spend it on this thing. You should be able to say to me, before I approve that, where are we with our number 1 priority? Because what am I not getting by spending this money? So that allows us to come in and instead of saying, I want this 1.5, hey, we've looked at all of our top 10 lists. None of them are for sale. This one solves a need. We recommend doing, X.
which I guess getting to where I was ending up, which is we'll develop a list that I guess we're all going to, I don't know if it's formally approved versus in a committee of the whole, proceed forward.
It's up in the air as to how that.
Right, but we would be involved in developing some kind of a list versus it's completely staff driven and you guys have your list and say, here it is. I'm trying to understand.
The way that we were thinking about it is natural resource they'll have their priority listing, and which will be different than archaeology. So basically, if you take all of Fairfax County, divide it into the parcels, and we have columns for weighting basically how important each of these parcels are based on active recreational need, whether they're adjacent to parkland, whether they have a water access, whether they have natural cultural resources. So, and depending on, so in my mind, I was thinking it will be a composite score, but also it's weighted. So it's not always that it is going to be high on natural resource or cultural resource, but maybe the need is active recreation. So that supersedes the other. So it's kind of a weighted scale and dynamic almost, depending on where we are trying to focus on. But we need to have that done by natural and cultural resource folks, because they're the experts in that. But then bringing up to you all to just see what the list looks like, and then moving into maybe how do we weigh these things?
The big challenge to this, of course, is the county does not like to condemn things, and I don't think we should be in the business of condemning things either. We don't own a lot of these things, and we actually have no control over them at all. All we can do is try to get them. This concept of going out and looking for pieces of property that would enhance what we have and fulfill needs of what we have, brilliant. We should have been doing it absolutely all along, but it doesn't mean that we can make anybody sell it to us. And under the flip side of that, of course, is when opportunities come up that are true opportunities, good value opportunities that, whatever, we need to be able to jump on those things too. My whole point to this mantra is there's not going to be this super clean matrix of how you do this. You just need to state your priorities. And the new thing to me, of course, is going out and looking for them and identifying them, and just having the conversations about those pieces of property will get us 90% of where we're trying to go right now. But it's not simple. It's not a clean matrix, and the opportunities won't be perfect.
I was just building towards a simple assurance that the board's involved in the process of the prioritization.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I would, that it's not, I don't think what we're talking about is I don't think we can come up with some formula that says automatically, okay, this is number one.
No,
No,
It might be, here's the top.
Yeah.
10.
that's 100% right.
And we
There's
kind of
no
want
way
to
of knowing what's gonna come in.
replicate
It's like a
those
work plan
things. Right.
type thing as to what
Yeah.
comes in. And what Tortia's describing, and thank you, is like the bare minimum of acquisitions for.
Sure.
parks.
What
Like,
identify-
like-
Let's explain why I'm wrong.
No, I don't want to explain why you're
Fine.
wrong.
This,
Clinton County's done a tremendous job with this already, where it is a part of their plan. And I've seen where they've gone in and they've taken parcels from people and built
And-
parks based on the strategic plan that they were gonna implement.
100%. If you go to Montgomery County and you Google, you cannot, it's literally impossible. They're tied to each other. You cannot pull up a map of parkland without seeing potential parkland. They are one in the same. So you see green and then you see the green hash marks. And that you cannot, there's no method of separating them out. It is in the master plan, it is in the sector plans, it is identified as parkland. So now the developer comes in, I want to subdivide it. What do you mean it's supposed to be parkland? So now, not only can we buy it, but we buy it at the cost of what it is now. We don't have to allow them to mark it up to the point where we can't do it. And then the thing about potential parkland is that we say, listen, I'm not in a rush. We're in a rush, but we're gonna exist longer than you're gonna be here, quite frankly. So whenever you're ready, this is like my shout out to my old acquisitions person, Bill, who like sat in somebody's house and gave them nothing, just knew everybody by name. And when you're ready, the benefit of selling to us, whenever you're ready, is you don't have to pay a realtor. You just call me up and I show up with a check. Like literally you get and it's cash, you don't have to worry about it, and that's the benefit. But whenever you're ready, and if you want to live in the house for the rest, I'll write you a check and I'll let you live there for 5 more years. So it's trying to figure out those up, but Tortia's 100% right. To do that, you have to start those relationships conversations so that they know that we exist and we're interested.
you will not be able to affect their value of their use or their use at all, though. That's done across the street at the planning commission with master plan, with the master plan and the zoning. So whether it's hashed that we want it potential or whatever, it will only say, hey, we're interested.
Doesn't have a legal.
No,
Doesn't have-
no, it doesn't.
It has no, and it likely never will.
I think, well,
But-
all right, let's stay with
You
our eyes open.
would have to replan it and
Strategic plan, we're working on it now, yeah.
no, it's not strategic plan. It's
Comp
the
plan.
comprehensive
Yeah, for
plan.
the-
And that's a whole public process.
We're
Not,
doing it now, we're doing it now.
But we are working on,
it's not ours.
Yes,
Comprehensive,
the
the
park-
county comprehensive.
yeah,
plan.
the park segment though.
Whatever
We are-
whatever the park authority does will have no effect.
Linwood,
on
it
what
will
the
have an
county
effect.
does.
What we're saying is we are writing the park section of the comprehensive plan right now.
If you don't own the land, you can't change that.
That
It's a
is
public
correct.
Process.
Yeah, right, the whole comp plan, what I'm saying is let's dream out loud and try to put into that process possibly.
Absolutely.
a way of doing that in which we have the opening.
But just understand, you're not going to be able to control that much. All you can do is present opportunity we want, and it's not going to
Yeah.
affect its value. That's going to be affected by the planning commission and the
The
comprehensive.
only additional thing that popped up just because of what you said, the last time we talked about condemning anything, I think that weird piece of property that was landlocked, I want to say in Tyson's, like 12, 15 years ago, and we chose not to.
Right.
I would be hesitant to let anybody who ever goes back and listens to this and hears about the Arlington example, think that we're heading towards a process where we think we're gonna start condemning land for parks.
Yeah.
I don't
Fairfax
think
County.
that's our intention, and just wanted to say that out loud, because I know Arlington has done it with pushback.
Fairfax County is very, very reluctant.
I know, which is why I was just saying it out loud, David, that comes back and watches this
The
later.
other thing that's necessary in like dreaming with our eyes open and figuring out, even if it takes 5 to 10 years, is the way that right now the land use works with FAR and development is it goes with the entire parcel. And so like in Montgomery County, I was able to acquire so much land in dedication, like 75%. Because if it's on proposed parkland, the owner, before they sell it to a developer, would come back and say, I only want what John wants. I don't want this part next to the road necessarily.
Just give me all
Why
that
don't you
density over
Give me
here.
this, and you can't develop on it anyway. You retain the FAR on your frontage. And now the person gets the seller gets the money and then they sell it again for the thing, we get it whenever we want. That right now, that FAR, that development goes with the parcel, so that nobody wants to give it to us because it lowers the development, which lowers the cost of the value of the land. We can fix that. We can be acquiring land without even paying for it and still having the exact same development. So that's one of the things we really have to be figuring out.
I mean, I think it's great. I just want.
The other thing I really like about this work that you guys have done here is that there's a potential to, just remove a lot of the work out of this in the sense that you could basically overlay these kinds of things and
Yes.
create sort of like a,
Layers.
this has got, 4 or 5 things layered in this property. So it goes up high. I mean, it goes back to
Exactly.
the
It checks
same
off
effort
multiple boxes.
of like sort of making things more data driven that you're doing in some other areas as well. And potentially, I mean, I don't know, AI could make this work a lot easier. I mean, checked by humans, of course, but I would think that
My IT guys, they're like, ah.
it's coming. I mean,
I
I
know,
don't know
no.
that it can do it yet, but it might, it would be interesting. Like you put all this in AI and say, okay, give me tiers of like, here's 3-4 areas of overlap here, so.
Jim, we will do that within the county AI guidelines.
Just a point of order, everybody, we are 20 minutes behind at this point, so.
Next slide, please.
It's my fault. I'm sorry.
You can, go ahead. We've kind of covered this. So this just concludes our presentation for tonight. And once again, reminding that we are requesting 12 million in the ROC for natural, cultural, and land acquisition.
Just a reminder, it's grouped together. So one of the benefits of the new process is these are groups. If we show, because now I'm going with the whole bit. We find George Washington's pipe, right? And we want to extend it. Like that's when we come back and say, hey, we're proposing we spend a little bit more money on this because we need to do this thing. And so it makes us a little bit more flexible within that $12 million ROC.
Okay. Before I adjourn, everyone knows that I've had some concerns about the information that was provided at the first presentation and the matrix, stuff like that. Staff and chairman and other people have helped me and given me a lot of the information, that I've sought. There's still some minor things that I'm certain will be provided to me. After having those things, I think it's my opinion, it is more important now than ever after seeing it. Not that I see any problems with it, but just that we all understand and have access to the underlying data, the next level down, frankly, like we've always had the whole time I've ever been on the board. So I propose, and I would like to see us have a couple things, the top 50 projects instead of the top 10 that I've been provided. I don't remember if it was 50 or 40 or whatever, but Nigel, thorough list. It was great. Thank you. The things that were in the 16 and 20 bond lists, I've heard it referred to as the Dave Bowden lists that we didn't complete and we're not completing right now. I'd like to see everybody have opportunity to see that. And we've also always in the past, there's a study for the number of sports players, and Mike, I'm sure you'll have some expertise of this for a particular kind of field and whether the need is underserved or overserved in a particular area. And I know that's a low priority for us now, but I'd like to at least see those needs to make sure there's no gaping gaps, in what we need in those facilities. I'm just proposing that information, mostly that's been given to me already, just be given to everybody and give them the opportunity to ask questions, if they have them. That everybody wants to see the stuff? Seeing some nod.
I've always been able to get the stuff that I've asked for.
Yeah.
I would note, just so you're aware, as the chairman of the Athletic Council's allocation committee and having done 10 or 11 meetings so far this year and probably 8 or 10 more to go. As we work through the allocation stuff, the update, there will be an updated. There is already a chart, but it wasn't based on what people needed. It's based on, here's what we have, how do we split it?
Right.
We're trying to rebuild it based on what is needed. Staff from Park Authority, schools and stuff are all involved in that process. Sarah and others have been at every one of those meetings.
Well, maybe even you, if you know of any big gaps in it, you can just let us.
That may help inform some of what you're talking about, but I think
Well, we don't have a lot of time, and that's one of the reasons I'm bringing up now when we're 25 minutes
I'm
late.
just saying, I think that
Is we're going to be asked.
After
to
we work
approve
through
the next meeting.
my point is that after we work through that and that allocation policy is all worked out and all those things are done, that will probably give you a matrix to understand part of it.
Sure.
But I would also say that just like many of the other things, we all have to remember that I'll use a rectangular fields are the biggest issue for this. A rectangle, lots of rectangles are not the same. So when you look at a turf field, nice full field rectangular field, and then you look at the elementary school rectangular field that is not a full field and doesn't drain well and has rocks on it that nobody wants to use, and you say, oh, they're equal, it throws off some of the interpretations of data.
So your opinion, your expert opinion, you've been on the athletic council.
The athletic council profoundly believes we need more rectangular fields, for example.
Is it something that we should try to look at this point or just forget it?
Oh, my assumption is that based on the dollars we have, that when those opportunities exist, we're gonna treat it like any other potential project and that, oh, here's an opportunity that hopefully we don't take somebody's front yard and take it over and totally can be used for fields and then find out they don't want to because of roads or something. That's ever happened before.
Is there any data out there that'd be useful to the board in your expert?
So so this is where you guys are gonna, the data, the national data is gonna show we're overfielded. By 3 digits, we're overfielded. Is that Fairfax County? Or is that, so there's no national data that's gonna ever show that we're in need of fields. That's different than the reality on the ground. Different places, lacrosse or baseball or other things are like interesting or to people. So it's never, so there's no, in fact, it's gonna actually tell you the opposite. So if you
I
ask.
don't want to get way in the weeds on.
I'm saying there's.
And frankly, Mike, if you say we're not ready to look at that data,
Well, saying-
I mean, historically, we've looked at that data before, but if
There's
we're
two-
doing it in a new way that.
I'm saying there's
not going to be.
two separate pieces of data though. Which I think is really important, and this goes to the needs assessment. issue that we-
You're getting my point, I think. Go ahead.
Right, and that is that you have the allocation process where you go, here's what the leagues, here's what the national governing bodies say or whatever, in terms of practices, games and whatever else. And do we have the field space to do that? And that's where a field is a field equation becomes so significant, because if you say that the elementary school field is equal to everything else, then yeah, we probably have too many. But when you say, oh, it's not a full-size field, it becomes a different outlook.
That's it.
However,
That's it.
However, when you look at the needs assessment that we have, in the needs assessment, it's not based on an allocation process. It's based on a population one per, I don't remember what this thing is, but it's a.
Level
you
of
need-
service.
Yeah, you have the service level.
Quality for your point.
But you have the service level, if you need a basketball court for every how many and a whatever and all these other things. Which again, treats it as every apple's the same, while some of them are old and rotten and some of them are pristine and
Okay,
perfect.
so let's just cut to the chase. Is there anything worth reviewing in that regard for us at this point? Are we in the process of looking at it differently and we're not going to get good clean
My
data?
impression is that the needs assessment process is going to help with it, which is being undergone now.
Okay.
But that I think that the athletic community across the board says we need better quality stuff and or more stuff because we need to use the things.
Is there anything staff can provide us with that you think would be useful to this board?
I think there was a survey done, but it was a while ago in terms of the athletic groups. But the athletic council would probably be happy to write. I've told them all involved with you guys and the board of supervisors in terms of needs assessment and funding stuff. But I don't know. I don't know how to say this other than it's the same problem we've always had. And there's never been a solution because you can't make a rectangle at an elementary school bigger than what it is. And more often than not, you're not going to light that smaller bad field.
Okay,
So
so we
that
have
helps you when time shifts.
limited time in the process. I'll throw it to you. You think there's any information that the athletic council would like to provide? Can you
Sure.
grab it for us and have it sent
Absolutely.
out? And so,
You open the door and they'll love the open door.
anyway, so basically, we're leaving the Dave Bowden list from 16 to 20. And the top 50 projects or whatever it was, if those can be distributed to everybody. We have consensus for that.
I think Jay and Nigel said that's doable.
Perfect. Thank you,
Is
guys.
that it?
All right, so with all of that and the extra stuff, and thank you to staff. The planning and development is committee is adjourned, and I apologize to my colleagues that I just cut it.
Thank you all.
You, the presenters and everybody, and Mike Reynolds, you're up the budget committee.
Hey, Karen, I'd like to call the Budget Committee to order, and we have a presentation that will require action tonight later at the board on the current bond program and our CIP approach. Josh?
Good evening, everyone. Josh Coleman, Business Administration Division Director, and we'll hop right in. So a couple quick recap slides, and I know you all have seen these a number of times before, but just a recap on the 2020 strategy versus what we've been looking at for 26. The old strategy being project-based versus cash flow-based. With the new strategy, I want to emphasize the cash flow. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that tonight as we continue forward. The rigid percentages versus the general referendum language that we've talked about previously, the revisiting the priorities. We're going to show some of this stuff in action tonight as we continue forward. Again, this is a familiar slide, the bond work plan as we look to the future. Work plan dependent on cash flow and the impacts, and looking at that 2-year planning cycle. Cash flow, I know we've gone through this before. I do want to spend a minute on it. It's an important part of what's coming before you tonight. Cash flow is really core to the planning and the 26 bond projects and all the work that's associated with that program, as well as what we have remaining projects that are actively underway or scheduled to be completed over the next 2 years in advance of the work starting associated with the 26 bond program. And in particular, cash flow is important when we talk about Audrey Moore Rec Center. We've talked about that previously, but the impact of Audrey Moore Rec Center on the bond program means less projects can be completed during that 2 to 3 year heavy construction cycle. And that the bond program, when we look at 26, is going to be heavier on the front end and the back end, sandwiched around Audrey Moore Rec Center in the middle. So with that, our goal has been that we need to finish as many of the projects as we possibly can on remaining bond funds through the existing work plans prior to 2028, when Audrey Moore really starts to kick in. So we're going to talk about some of that as we continue here. As a reminder, we've gone through this exercise once before of existing or previous bond projects and not holding on to bond projects from cycle to cycle. And so we went back in March of 25 and went through bridging the bond program from 24 to 26. A lot of this was related from the 4-year to the 6-year change and what was remaining, and going through those projects, what was outstanding, releasing some of that funding and allocating it towards new projects to encourage the same type of activity that I'll go through in the next few slides.
Just on this first one. If because I understand we're not going to go across bond cycles, but we are open to the idea of you can do the planning like for the next rec center in this budget, in this cycle, so that you know what you're funding the next cycle.
That's what you all voted on a year ago or so with Audrey Moore, because we needed to spend money for Audrey Moore.
I'm just making sure we can still do that even.
100%. When we're talking about banking projects, we're talking about underspending, saying in 2020 bond, we're gonna have money for Audrey Moore construction, and then we just don't spend it, and then we assume that we get more cash flow in the next bond cycle, we move it over. We can't do that anymore.
No, I just.
Yes.
And so again, back from that March of 25, this was reviewing everything that was on the books, reducing projects that weren't fully funded. The example at the time, Barron Cameron, the couple $100,000 we had towards what would have been a significant mega project at Barron Cameron and other projects that were similar. Completed project balances, so everything that had been completed and releasing some of those balances, a normal activity as we finish projects and release balances of whatever's left, contingency or whatever's left in a balance there, and then reducing based off of work plan adjustments. So every group looking at their typical work plans and reducing or releasing things that are on work plans that weren't going to happen. So that was, again, an example of $10.9 million from last March of 25. So as we look forward, and looking at the next several years, we have active work plans already in place, right? Already approved by the board, back in November and January, for the FY 26 work plan, and work to come with the FY 27 work plan, with the goal again to spend down as much of our bond funds as we possibly can in advance of the 26 referendum dollars kicking in. And that occurs in FY 28. So FY 28 is the first year where we'll start to spend those 26 referendum dollars. And so as, again, we want to finish as much of the projects as we possibly can prior to that. Additionally, as any funding becomes available, whether it's in sinking funds, proffered, awful, whatever the source might be, that we want to start to implement today, the 2026 strategy that we've been laying out over the last several meetings. Any opportunity where funding becomes available, and we start to show the 26 strategy in action, which is what we'll go through in just a minute. Just again, a highlight talking about the current work plan. This was approved in January of 26. You all have seen this before. And again, emphasizing the goal here to spend down the majority of those previous bond dollars. As we look to the projects now, the action that was coming before you tonight is to release funds from completed work plans. So we've identified balances from completed bond work plan items and want to allocate that using the new 26 strategy as we laid out. This is coming from two buckets: releasing balances from completed projects. Some of the examples here: Ruxtall, Mount Vernon Woods, McLean Central, things that have finished, and us not having to tap into the contingency funding or balances remaining from those funds, as well as a significant one here, moving projects to the 26 bond based off of timing considerations. So a large chunk of this is coming from the Franconia Rec Center design dollars. It's about $3.5 million today. Given the timing of rec centers and where we are in that process, it does not make sense to continue to hold on to $3.5 million in 2020 bond dollars. It makes more sense to move it into the rec center bucket in the 2026 cycle.
So a couple just a finer points. Thank you, Josh. First is, I want to direct you to the prepaying. The beauty of the CIP process that we're doing is now, to Josh's point earlier about the cash flow, we can now say, okay, so how can we relieve some of the pressure on the 2026, 2027 years? Let's prepay. Let's figure out some projects that we can do, move them now in the same order, so that then we can shift that Franconia design money closer to when we would possibly construct, because the numbers are gonna be completely off. Like, we can do a design and it'll say it's X amount of thing, and then we're like so off that we're off by like double digit million. The other thing is, the other beauty of this project is we're not gonna have to, this is still the old CIP method. The beauty of the new CIP is we don't have to release funds. We can just continue to roll through the project. Right now, there's money that's associated with McLean Central. It's done, we got it cheaper than, whatever it is, but it's still McLean Central's money. So we have to get you to approve the reallocation, but that's not a normal thing. That's why we're doing this level of effort in the 2026, so we can just roll into the next one vis-a-vis the work plan. So.
And I think it's, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doctor.
Okay, so how is this benefiting the Franconia Rec Center if the funds are being moved? So in the next bond cycle, will Rec Center recapture that fund or what?
Yeah, so we would move this to the 2026 bond cycle and still have money dedicated towards Franconia design. I think we still have a rec center challenge to figure out that we've all talked about an awful lot. We know that there's no realistic hope for Franconia Rec Center to get done in the next bond, right? So as we look at shifting those funds to 26, the design funds we have available, it's the opportunity, I think, we need to assess the rec center problem and again, come back with a new long-term strategy tied to rec center funding and what that looks like. But that 3.5 million is remaining towards Franconia, or what I'd call rec center design, and looking at how do we get to the next bond cycle 2032 with rec centers, or as any alternative options become available, whether it's mid-cycle bond or any other things that we could possibly look at for rec centers. We've got funding that's associated with being able to start the design on the next one. 3.5 million is not enough to do design on a rec center anyway, so we're already short of what that total is.
Mike,
But that it would, sorry, go ahead.
Mike, if I may clarify what he was saying.
Yes.
So the money that is dedicated today in the 2020 bond for the Franconia Rec Center design, that money is going to be reallocated. We are then going to take 2026 bond money and use it, place the 3.5.
Yes.
Just answered my.
It's 100%
It's
in
in the
that rock.
rock. It's in the rec
It's in the
center.
rec center.
Rec center rock right
So-
now. It's already in there. We already
Center rock, yeah.
proposed it
Yeah,
for the
but
design of
It's
Franklin.
gonna be used on something that would have otherwise been in the bond, right?
So it's gonna be, so two things. We didn't, to Josh's point, which is an important point, the 3.5, again, with the banking was not enough to do the rec center design anyway. So we couldn't have, even if we started, even if now is the timing. And so when we did the rock, instead of, remember, we used to have Audrey Moore, then Franconia or Providence Rock, we grouped them all together for rec center wellness, Audrey Moore and Franconia design. So we included the Franconia design in that, but we can't do a design. It's a waste of $6 million if we do it right now. If we know now we've shifted it out to the 2032 bond, all the numbers are, you can't use it anymore. So we need to do the design closer to when we have the established funds. So we know exactly what we're gonna put in the 2032 bond or the mid-cycle bond or whatever it is for how much we actually need.
It's an efficiency thing.
Is there a, do we have like a map or a plan of, I'm sorry, I should,
No, it's okay.
do we have,
No,
Yeah.
Tim actually answered my question.
is there like a map or a plan of, and I know we've talked about this a lot in the past, but of the sequence of rec centers and whether the ones that are the
Funny you could ask that question.
last long enough?
Great question. I think Josh called you beforehand and did that question. And I think that one of the things when we're talking, and I think that I think we've had enough conversations around that it's not a surprise to the board of supervisors and everybody that we're saying that we need a mid-cycle bond. I think that we're really getting a little bit of legs on that. Part of that is now looking at, so we have like Providence and Franconia, the whole pushing, and I'm not trying to start a whole other conversation, and I'm not going to look at Dr. Carter, no, just, but the whole pushing.
At you.
No. Remember back when we were originally talking about Providence and Franconia, when we were shifting that ball down, right? Part of the shifting or the choosing between the two as to which one works out is Franconia is built like a brick house, right? So it was a gut job. So theoretically speaking, we can do it in phases, or we can figure out Providence is a tear down, like it's stick built. And it has a lot of land associated. So now we really need to, as part of the Franconia design, relook at all of that stuff. We need to know, because we can't just stop at Franconia or Providence. So part of the design for is we got to be looking at the whole thing. We might still design, we might still design Franconia to start in 2032, and maybe the mid-cycle bond is Providence, because it's enough to do Providence. And so we're talking about two, but we need to know what's next in order of like where we need to prioritize our funds, because otherwise we're looking at the wrong thing. And meanwhile, Cup Run goes down or whatever. So that's part of, I think, sorry, they hate it when I don't mean it. Oh my God, it's like nothing's gonna happen. Yes, I think that we're gonna add that. Yes.
I guess, I mean, it makes sense that we have a sense of what the next two are looking like, but the broader, the question is about like the broader.
What's next, right?
What's the whole plan? Like how, 'cause we know we've got all these rec centers that are all falling apart at the same time. And then also the other question is, what does that mean? Like, are we just sticking it to a future board who's gonna have to deal with all these also tapping out at the same time because they're all being.
I think that is the goal. Let's say we're dreaming with our eyes open and we get a mid-cycle bond. I think that the argument or the work that Josh is going to do single-handedly on his own is looking at all of the rec centers. So it's making it clear that this is not a one-term time problem. This is a problem that's going to so the cycles, it's going to exist and to get off of it, maybe we need every other bond, we need a rec center mid-cycle bond, but we have to show that need, because right now it's like, okay, let's just like fix Franconia and Providence. Well, no. Then the next one comes up. Then the next one comes up. And then when do we fit in Reston if we're, all of that stuff.
So there's a report, I actually just found it. There's a report that was done in March of 2018. The FCPA System-Wide Sustainability Plan for Rec Centers. And all of the supervisors were met with, all this stuff. I say that because it was like $249 million. That was needed, but that's 2018.
Yeah, we should have done it back then.
So,
No, it would have been affordable back then.
One of the things, but it actually looked at, it may be worth, if you're interested in this space, looking at that, because one of the things it looks at is the deterioration of rec centers, the cost of maintaining them, and the fact that at some point, I think in the mid 2030s, if I remember correctly, we hit an intersection point where we're actually losing money on rec centers versus them being revenue sources. And there was talk, if I remember correctly, about a $200 million bond. You're going and asking the board of supervisors for a chunk of money,
250.
for a chunk of money, because they said you need to do them all at once or whatever. So as
There's
you,
a 300, there was a $350 million gap.
right, but I point that out because when you're asking questions like, has there been looks, and that document was actually an outside consultant, came in, spent a lot of time and showed us, we have this huge issue. And it might be worth looking at that.
We have the follow-on plan to that huge issue.
Well,
Go ahead, Josh.
Well, I think I think that study was a good study to highlight the problem. And I think not that we want to have a study happen again and nothing happened from it, but that it is time to refresh the work that was done there and get that up to speed with what are the changes that we've made so far and
What cost?
what's now. It's not 250 million, it's X, 100 million. And
Part of that recommendation was also that we would probably look at closing.
Oh.
Some of the facilities.
So, yes, it was.
so I think there's outstanding questions there on some of those facilities as well. So I think all that to the point of we agree in terms of to look at that study again and the approach to, again, better map out the long-term plan with the rec centers and what is the funding that's really going to be.
I just wanted to point out that might be, it addresses some of what you're specifically asking about, might be worth looking at.
And I think this is a really valuable conversation, but we need to get back to action.
So, continuing here, you can see where again the released funds are coming from, the amount of $8.5 million from the couple buckets. You can see how we split out our bond program between new park development, natural cultural, and the bulk of it on the park renovations and upgrades side. Moving forward with these released funds, we would add projects to the work plan to meet the cash flow goals. Again, the cash flow goal being we want to spend the remaining balances prior to Audrey Moore kicking in and over the next 2 years have gone through our bond funding other than Audrey Moore dollars. So using that data-driven approach that we've taken you through over the last several meetings, we would allocate projects based off of that approach. And we're focused on the deferred capital renovation category where the bulk of those releases have come from. And importantly, where the projects are capable of being completed quickly. So speed is a key element in here tied to that cash flow strategy and approach that we want projects that are going to be completed now and not things that are going to take 3 years to complete and bump up against, again, Audrey Moore and the cash.
You want them done by FY 28 when Audrey Moore is kicking in.
Beginning of FY 28, ideally. We're getting projects here that can be completed in the next year. That's what the deferred capital renovations category is focused on. And again, we want to get as much stuff clear before Audrey Moore really picks up.
And Josh, from a transparency standpoint, if something is skipped over, let's just say, right, because of speed is more, that's going to stay there. We're going to find it again. We're going to be able to talk about it. So.
And we're going to show that example right here because there are things that will be skipped over in this process tied to the speed. But I'm giving an example of, one of the categories that we have for approval are playgrounds, right? You all have seen this list of playgrounds before and where the red line exists with playgrounds. I've highlighted on the right-hand side the projects that we've put forward with the playgrounds. Cub Run, Stream Valley, Lincolnia, Board Street, those have all been scoped out and planned for already, which is why they're ready to go and can be completed quicker than the projects on the list. The good news is, and I think this is the key with this, another example of as funding becomes available, we can go to the list and just immediately go down and hit the next item on it. This moves this red line down by 3, and we've already started to make progress on the things that we're going to wait until FY 28, the beginnings of when we could spend this. There will always potentially be, depending on the funding source, some level of restriction that would require us to skip down a level. So if there's a proffer in a district that is super specific, we might not be able to hit item number 1, but going down the list in order, using the criteria associated with that funding, we just hit the next 3 projects. And the good news is, again, we've shifted that line down. So I think this is, for us, an exciting opportunity to get started earlier on a lot of these projects that otherwise would have to wait for the next 2 years. And as additional funding becomes available, whether it's our next sinking fund allocation during carryover, whether it's any additional funding that we can pick up from whatever other source, this would be the exact process that we would go through. So with that, tonight looking for funding and project approval laid out in the categories as you see indicated on the list. I do want to emphasize if a project became not viable, again, that list approach that we would go to the next item on the list, but anything that didn't get done would remain on the list. We're not taking anything off of any of the existing lists that we've gone through in the previous presentations. It's simply assessing it with the criteria associated with the funds. There is an asterisk here on the rec centers and golf category, that $3.8 million. Part of this item is to approve for that category funding prioritization strategy, bond fund, this fund that we're talking about today as the first priority. But in the event, and we'll talk about an item in closed session tonight, in the event of any adjustments made by the board, that we have two alternative funding strategies for that 3.8 million tied to rec center wellness and revenue sinking fund. So looking for approval for both the project categories and the funding prioritization strategy for rec center and golf category.
I'm curious.
Question first. So are we saying that nothing can happen with the regarding the design of the Franconia Rec Center until possibly FY32? Is that what that means?
Until no. So the right now Franconia Rec Center is not in the 26 bond to develop. So it has to be in the 2032 bond, sometime in the 2032 bond. To design it, we have to design it in the 2026 bond instead of designing it now. So we have to move it forward because if we design it now, it'll tell us that it costs $80 million. Then we'll go to build it and it'll be $130 million. We'll have to do the whole thing over again. And so it got pushed off. So right now in the 2026 bond, it's set for design. I don't know whether or not it's going to be 2032, 2033, or 2034, kind of like Audrey Moore. What ends up happening, well, it's the same thing. You have to design once we get the money. So Audrey Moore is a 2026. We have this whole conversation with people who 2026, but Audrey Moore is not going to be open 2020 when we get the 2026 money. We can't do permits and everything until we have the money in our hands. So the reality is, and this is why we need the mid-cycle bond, for a rec center that's in the 2032, we're probably not constructing it till 2034, 2030. So it's not opening till 2036 to 2037 because we can't do anything construction wise until we have the bond dollars in our hand. That was what the issue, why now Walkinshaw with Audrey Moore, that slipping from a 4-year to a 6-year bond was such a big deal because it moved Audrey Moore from the 2024, which could have been started in 2026 to starting in 2030. Well, no, 2020. Do we think Audrey Moore is going to start?
2028.
In terms of the public seeing shovels in the ground. Mohammed is starting it on pulling permits and stuff the minute we get this, the second we get the dollars, but you're not going to see any of that stuff. We appreciate all the stuff that you're not going to see all of that stuff until it closes. That's the reality of that. But a mid-cycle bond allows us to sort of shift that up. If we get a mid-cycle bond and the decision is we're going to want to do Franconia, boom, we now have the money, we can design it in to be able to construct it at the time. So maybe we can start in 2032 proper. It's a delay of.
I also want to emphasize, we couldn't sit on the funds that long anyway. When you talk about how long we're talking until Franconia can be hit today, we have money in 2020 that we need to spend and go through. We can't wait until 2032 for actual design work to be kicking in. So
how long does planning and development of a rec center take?
Well, we started, how long does planning and development? So we started Audrey Moore. When did we start? Like heavily, we started.
2020, I feel like we started doing work on.
I would say from start to finish would be about 16
Back then it
years.
was no, but
That's my experience.
realistically, just the planning piece. That's a.
So the planning piece.
2021 when we first started talking about happening.
Okay, that, no, but
3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years, which means that
Community engagement.
or the Franconia would be get started sometime 2028, 2029. Because that's the only way you're gonna know how, from a planning perspective, that's the only way you're gonna know how much money to ask for in 2032.
We would do the plan for Franconia. Let's say we just are set on the bond cycles. There's 2 different dates you have to keep in mind. It's the 20 when we get the dollars for the bond, but then we have to take this time frame right now when you're approving the rocks and the amount of money that we have and extrapolate that for the 2032 bond. This is the time in the next, whatever, 4 years, 6 years from now, whatever the date, I could do the math in my head if I wasn't talking to you, as to when, so that you guys can understand what the rock for the rec center is. Because I need to be able to tell you next year, bond cycle, when we're doing this, the rock will now be called Franconia and it will be this amount of money that we know because we did the design, as opposed to what we got in the issue with Mount Vernon and everything was not doing it that way and assuming, oh, it's $50 million. I'm making the number up and coming back like, oh, no. It's double that. So now we're pulling from a whole bunch of stuff because we allocated funding or we allocated the rock without actually knowing how much it was going to cost. Now we're pulling from a whole bunch of stuff. We can't do that anymore. And so we get you the dates as to backing that up to when we would be having the rocks conversation for the 32 bond based on now schedule. So you know when we'd have to back it up
A
to.
couple of years before, much like it was for Audrey Moore, we started those conversations with you all 2 years ago now, I think, in advance. So
It's sooner than you think. Like it's not, if you look at Mount Vernon and Audrey Moore, like you're not gonna be sitting around. I think that the majority of if that's the next thing, the majority of the 2026 bond is gonna be talking about the next rec center, just like we're talking about Audrey Moore, how long we've been talking about Audrey Moore. Like there's not gonna be a gap in talking about it. It's just when it takes that long to get done.
Question.
So just if we're pushing off Franconius rather, is the facility going to last until, I mean, is it in good enough repair to last until 2034? I think you were saying. And also, have we noticed any intersection of like where the rec center is in such bad repair that people stop using it? Or do we feel like people have a capacity for, a less,
So
rec center that's less?
So the first answer to the first question, it better stay up, stay up. Like that's the only answer that we can give because the revenue fund, like sticks in blue.
What's the current repair status of that rec center?
Oh, so that rock of like, the reason why we switched from Franconia and or Providence and Audrey Moore Rock to Rec Center Rock is because in pushing Franconia out, we recognize that we're now gonna have to spend more money keeping it up. So now it's like a lot of that Rec Center wellness, and the county understands that. So we're getting Rec Center wellness dollars. So when you see that is it carryover or third quarter? I always forget.
third quarter, we've had 5 million put in. It's advertised right now, pending approval next week. But yeah, the county does understand there are
some money to make it
associated with maintaining the rec centers just to keep them open. But it is a continued, every year that stretches out, the more realistic it becomes that we're gonna have to at some point, hopefully never, but at some point, serious conversations on rec center status. And when a project continues to have to slip by 6 years and they're 40, 50, 60-year-old buildings, we run into that as a very real possibility.
It would be really useful to sort of have almost like a sort of like blood pressure check on the rec center because I mean, it sounds like it's, over time, like this, just looking at the maintenance costs and also what's happening, whether there are safety concerns and that kind of thing.
And glue, everything, like every meeting that I have with him saying something's gone down.
We have a very significant, robust approach to trying to they are a struggle, but it is a big effort to continually assess and look for any funding opportunities to make sure that it's staying open.
We've been conveying all those very same ideas to all the supervisors.
The bottom line to all of it is the more money, the sooner, the better.
Yeah.
That's a common denominator, period.
Rick, and then we'll.
No, just to your point, because in the work plan for FY26, you have almost $5 million for Providence. And Providence is going to have to be a tear down. This is just to keep it going and operating.
Yeah.
So
the shutdown that we
right.
just completed.
Shutdown, yes.
Shutdown, right. Because we had the 2-week shutdown and we have the other stuff there. And to your point, we're at a process right now. We're doing one rec center per bond cycle. And frankly, Providence or Franconia can't last to 2038.
Right.
Hurt my feelings to redo the roof of Audrey Moore. When do we do that?
Yeah, that's a waste of dollars. I mean,
Like it hurt my
all the
feelings
money
knowing we were
putting
gonna
in.
tear it down and like whatever, but we had to, but the roof was falling in. We had to, 5 million? How much do we have to spend? $5 million on the roof of Audrey Moore, which is, when I say waste, it's not a waste because people get to use it. But considering that right now, if we had been able to do Audrey Moore when we did, we wouldn't have had to spend $5 million on a roof that's gonna get torn down. Sorry, is it too soon? Is it too soon?
It is a sore subject.
Are you good? All right, so just a reminder, at the board time, we'll be voting on that list that's in the board packet of the categories with the projects associated, so
The prioritization of the fund.
prioritization. Any other last minute on those topics? And if not, Mr. Chair, I'll conclude. the vote.
You know, just, so is there consensus to move those forward is the question.
Yes.
And yes,
Does that make any sense at all, given what you talked about with the bond? I know we have like specific line items. I can't remember what they were. You had it, but you had the line items with dollars. Does it make any sense does it have to be that way versus just here they all are together within the total, and therefore if you need to move between categories, you can?
We don't have to do, so the new thing, we can absolutely do that without bringing it up.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
because it's owed to someplace else, we have to get it reallocated. So we're kind of, we're bridging these two CIP processes.
It'll get smoother in years.
Yes, it'll be
Following, but
super
never-
smooth. We don't even have to have this conversation. We just come to you to adjust the work plan. As opposed to reallocating. We're like, oh, good news, we can add 7 projects to the work plan. Here's the thing, do you guys, yeah.
But what will be important is maintaining that transparency. If we get asked lots of constituency questions about what happened to that project, I think that's something that we just have to make sure we're clear about.
so just to clarify, everybody, the question that Mike was raising there, there is a consensus to move this forward to tonight, correct? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mike. And Bill, you're up.
All right, I apologize. I can't give you your 45 minutes back. I'd like to call to order the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee. And you've got 5 minutes.
Great, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, greetings, good evening. I am Deidre Grayson, Marketing and Communications Division Director here at the Park Authority. As we sing in church, I won't be before you long, but thank you for your time. As we know, it's a bond year, and we've had already a very robust conversation about what to expect, as well as all of the presentations that the team has presented over the latest bond series. Now that we're almost to the end, it's time to think about how will we get into the market and advocate on for the park bond, and who will advocate on our behalf, both online and offline. So today I am sharing a brief preview to get the wheels turning as we prepare to reactivate the green team. This is phase 1. So it will allow us to kind of, again, reset where we are, especially given the fact that we have new board members with us now, and give us space to continue to work through the campaign assets. This is a very familiar slide, but it continues to reinforce who we are and how impactful and broad and deep our park system is. We're celebrating 75 years, and with that, we are celebrating 75 years of service and stewardship. We have a legacy of excellence here at the Park Authority. That is not something that we should shy away from, whether it's service, stewardship of public resources, or enterprise management. We show up, and we show up well. Between CAPRA accreditation, gold medal winner 4 times, and equity and environmental leadership, we are definitely proving that stewardship, or we are the best in class in stewardship across the country, but also locally and regionally. And last but certainly not least, while we have very strong retention here at the Park Authority, we're also fueling the next pipeline of park professionals by being recognized 2 years in a row as top employer for interns. So big deal, lots to talk about. I think one of the first times that I came before you, I mentioned that we have a lot of awards that we don't talk about enough, and we're working through that, but this is the time to shout from the rooftops. Again, we've been talking about the bond. So a brief overview for the record. We're preparing a new cycle. We're preparing to enter, a new bond cycle season critical to our park and recreational system. This follows a previous successful 2020 park bond referendum that approved $100 million for the Park Authority. As we look forward to the fall, we will be part of the ballot this general election in November, which will include $180 million, again, that we've been talking about at length over the last few board meetings. But if approved, it will be the 15th consecutive park bond approved by county voters dating back to the first $4 million bond in 1959. And we've been able to maintain approval ratings above 70%. So we have shoes to fill, big shoes to fill this year. Again, it's worth repeating that the team has really done an excellent job with creating a data-driven foundation to take us into the next phase of our of investment. The needs assessment really provided that strong foundation to evaluate the park and recreation needs across Fairfax County. And of course, you don't see the rocks here, but essentially, if you imagine or close your eyes, you can definitely see the rocks that all of the team members have shown you this whole time. Sorry, Jay.
I love the rocks.
I know, we love the rocks. But the point of the advocacy is to really reinforce without the $180 million bond what's at stake. And for the record, if the bond is not approved, we lose, we face actually a future of decline, deterioration, and lost opportunity. This is just a reorganization of the rocks, if you will, so the total amount is the same, more public facing. But we already talked a lot about the rec centers and how we lose the opportunity to modernize some of our beloved centers that we have here in the county. It limits the whole park improvement and development that we anticipate. There's been a lot of conversation about deferred maintenance, and while the team has done an amazing job in maintaining our parks, if we take a step back forward, it will probably be more wider steps, which will deepen the severe impact of the existing gap. And then, of course, there was an excellent presentation to talk about why we need to really move forward with the preservation plan. But if we do not have this park bond, then essentially our natural and cultural resources will go unprotected. So net, this is a big deal. And any year without investment really makes recovery become a lot more difficult over time. So just a quick level set, what is a green team? Essentially that it starts with you as a group of organized individuals appointed by you, the Park Authority Board, to engage and mobilize members of the community. The group should be representative of who uses our parks and who enjoys our recreational services. And ultimately, the inspiration should be to vote yes come November. The ways that it could happen is, and you all already do this at length anyway, is meetings, having bond info sessions. This year, the last bond was in 2020. Media has fragmented a lot. There's a lot of influence offline, but also online. Using digital communications will be really key this year. Press, we have so many advocates for the Park Authority that we can leverage and tap into to really push on our behalf as well. And then, of course, updated collateral, which brochures, stickers, premiums, et cetera, to get people excited and to share the message on our behalf. I spoke a bit about responsibilities, but the key to that I will focus on here is reaching new affinity groups. So previously, we've always had Park Authority Board members, we've had Friends groups members, we've had Park Foundation members. Remember 2020 with COVID, parks were everyone's sanctuary. So there were a lot of affinity groups who were developed and who have a love of higher love for parks since then. So if you look around left and right, you'll probably see a lot more in our parks, which will help us represent the users of our park a lot stronger. So that's a really key piece that I think we have an opportunity to focus on this year. And of course, to inspire voters to say yes in November. So what's next? Submission of board nominations for the Green Team, and then the appointment of the Green Team chair and committee will take place by the board. We will also publish a meeting schedule so that we meet, I believe, on a monthly basis to talk about the landscape and the activation plan or the outreach plan to get the word out. And then we will also share back the campaign, which will essentially be similar to previous years in advocacy toolkit and the web hub that is typically held on the foundation's page. Key messaging, FAQs, data points from the recent assessments and studies, a lot of what you've heard, but synthesized for public consumption, campaign assets, and a suggested outreach list. And then we kick off in June.
Questions?
So let me comment while we're on this topic. If you have an interest in being on the Green Team yourselves, if you think there are people from your supervisory district who would like to be on it, if you think there are potentially future board members in any of the districts that you think this would be a good way to have them get their feet wet, please send all that information to me or to Deirdre, and we will work to stand up this committee. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Cynthia.
Can I have a copy of this slide deck so that I can familiarize myself more with the green team and all of that?
Yeah, typically every district has a member of the green team on it and facilitated by the board member here. So our responsibility is to go out and find somebody. Typically, we've had as chair of the green team, the next Park Authority board member. So we'll certainly reach out to Ken Quincy to see if he wants to be a part of this, to stay engaged.
I was just thinking about him.
He would be great to
Look
be.
how everybody's reaction is like,
The team, the team
good.
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
Park Authority. So, yeah, get ready, buckle up. Mike,
We, is it ethical? Is it okay, like, to hit people where they recreate, right? So will there be, the green team will message people that are users, right? As well, like in receipts or, hey, you're signed up for camp, remember the bond is in November. Is that something we do or no?
Not necessarily, not directly through our channels, but if there are lists that we gather under the name of the green team, then you'll be able to target them with key messaging.
As I recall,
the other thing to note is that staff members cannot advocate.
Can't lobby. That's kind of what.
use the government resource to
Can't
do.
use any
if it's for, if it's FOIA-able, this group can get that information from Deidre. So the green team can say, we would like to either FOIA, and then it's our prerogative as to whether or not we are going to charge for the FOIA. We can, if you ask a question that's FOIA-able, a lot of times, a lot of the address and stuff might not be, though it's not, that might not be a FOIA-able thing, but if it's FOIA-able, then that the green team can.
Just
request
thinking
it.
about leverage, that's all.
Doesn't the Park Foundation
They can be a part of it.
engage, and
Right.
the
They
reason,
can-
because I seem to recall like they were the.
Because they have the
advertising-
sand, they have the signs and.
Right, and so, Mike, and one of the things that, for example, they can do is they can do digital advertising, put a geofence around the park that like South Run. I mean, if anybody that comes into South Run, they can then follow that mobile device around everywhere they go until election day with messaging about it. So we can't get the list, but you can actually tag all the people that go there.
Yeah. I know it sounds creepy, but this is the way it works.
Yeah.
She's flinching inside a little bit, like, you know.
True.
Yeah, like,
True though.
All right,
Yeah, targeted works.
in terms of, sorry, so what about in terms of like, you're saying that the foundation, this external group can advocate. Can they, like, you can, as a business, you can purchase time on rec center TVs in the rec center advertising your business. Why could an advocacy group not purchase time? on
They could.
TVs? Okay,
An advocacy team could.
We just can't do it.
We just can't do it.
so there would be the solution.
Well,
that
you
we
could
could-
read. Same thing.
And it has to be brought to you by insert name of the green team.
Exactly.
Got it, that makes sense.
Thank you, Deidre.
Thank you, Mr.
We're adjourned.
Okay, we are now on our dinner break.
Are you guys okay with that? Eating through closed session? How far behind are we?
We are. All the April 22nd, 2026 Park Authority Board meeting order. Andy tells me that there are no public speakers this evening, so we'll continue, start right ahead with the administrative items. By the way, just an item, the action item will take place now after the closed session. So, first items, Cynthia, we have the adoption of board minutes from 2 board meetings. If I may have a motion for the first of those.
I move that we adopt the meeting minutes.
Second.
So she's collectively doing both of those. So, and Bill Lilly has seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Those motions carry. Have 4 information items. Beach leaf disease, 2026 bond program number 3. Audrey Moore Rec Center renovation update and the 2026 Ellie Doyle Park Service Award. Chairman's Matters had a wonderful event. I was at the event at Riverbend Park a couple of Saturdays ago. I was really impressed. We had Wonder Wagon there. We had archaeology. John Burke and Natural Resources, the local tree folks were there. It was a recruiting station for the park. It was just amazing. Great day. Kudos to everybody. This past Saturday, Jay may show us, we had a ribbon cutting of Vernon Woods in Franconia. Beautiful park, all designed in-house. The playground, the fields, et cetera, et cetera. And Jeff McKay was really thrilled that we weren't spending outside engineering dollars when we had the capability and the staff resources and time to use in-house. So that's, again, thank you to everyone involved. We're going to go first to online. Faisal, are you there? I'm sorry, Jay's next. I apologize. Hey,
I worked really hard
Director's Matters.
on the presentation that I didn't see until right now. So you started laughing too early, Torsia. Okay, next slide. Okay, so spring budget meetings with the BOS. I know we wanted to talk about it since we finished having all of the conversations. Thank you so much to all of you who came with us when we were meeting with all the supervisors. I think that those meetings went really well, talking about both our needs, where we are right now, how we sprinkled in how we are doing our new CIP bond strategy, 2027 advertised budget, and then changes to our operating funding strategy. Thank you so much to those who were able to join us. Next slide. Also, thank you to these wonderful people up that, this was not even staged. It was not, you happen to be here. But thank you very much to all of the people who testified at the Board of Supervisors budget hearings. Tim, Vice Chair Bill Bowie, Providence District Representative Mike Reynolds testified to the BOS about the importance of funding the authority. In addition, 12 community members also provided testimony on parks related matters. Key issues raised by park advocates included acquisition of new properties, staffing, trail maintenance, invasive species management, value of parks and supporting health and wellness, protecting cultural and natural resources, and fostering a strong sense of community. So thank you very much. It's so weird that I can like look right in front of me and say thank you to the people in front of me, but thank you very much. Okay. The evolution of Healthy Strides community classes. So launched in 2020 as the pandemic area contingency, Healthy Strides community classes have evolved to a permanent pillar of our service delivery. The borderless rec center experience has surpassed its initial goal of maintaining engagement during facility closures, becoming a vital tool for accessibility and community health. So the total participation, 184,000 engagements since inception. I wanted to reread that. That's a lot of engagements. 6,900 classes delivered with an average of 27 virtual check-ins per session. Specialized wellness, the platform hosts critical workshops for nutrition and diabetes care, along with targeted training. Global and local reach, we have log participation from as far as South Korea and England, while locally the program serves residents in nursing homes and assisted living facilities who face mobility barriers. Community investment, the program's value is reflected in unsolicited participation feedback and a growing interest in philanthropy. Dedicated donation link has been integrated in the program website to support future. So by removing those physical and geographic barriers, Healthy Strides has created a versatile hybrid model that meets residents where they are, whether in a rec center or at a care facility. You have to be very careful. You do not want to ever say the benefit that came out of COVID, because there's no benefit. COVID was horrible. But one of the things that came out of COVID was the ability to just think. Nobody would have thought without COVID to say, let's do virtual fitness classes. Nobody would have said like that's virtual. Yeah, we're just gonna, and it just, we did it and staff and it like blew up, and now it's post-COVID being a thing that people really, really want. For staff to be really innovative and be thinking about that and meeting residents where they are, whether or not they can come to Rexon or not, is just a huge thing. So kudos to all the staff for Healthy Strides. Next slide. So on Saturday is Earth Day. Join us on April 25th from 10 to 4, Lake Fairfax Park. If you've never been to Earth Day, it is a very large event. It's at Sully last year, and this year is at Lake Fairfax. I highly recommend coming. There's the Wonder Wagon and there's park authority stuff, but there's other things from DOT to other kiosks to music to food. It's to a rock wall. I don't know if we're gonna ever have the rock wall this year. I don't know. No promises. Had a rock wall last year. No promises, but it's really a really great. Oh, craft beer garden, local entertainment, and free giveaway. So please come to Earth Day. Next slide.
Today, of course, is Earth Day.
So very funny.
Celebrated Earth Day.
Last Earth Day, and see, now you got me on. So as an ecologist, last Earth Day, I was, and I should say this, but maybe they're watching. So I was being interviewed live by a very young reporter. And they asked about Earth Day. And they asked about, oh, is this just a day that you guys want to get together? And he asked me 3 questions, and it dawned on me, and I'm like, you don't know what Earth Day is. Like, you don't know, like, fundamentally, oh my gosh. So I had these talking points that Ben Boxer had written, and I would walked up to Damon, I'm like, that's not now what we're talking about. Now I'm educating everybody about Earth Day and the river was catching on fire and the Clean Water Act or whatever it is. And so going back to the original, what it is, because we've made so many strides as a nation. And so it's hard to remember times when rivers were catching on fire and we needed all that other stuff. So going back to the original to tell people, yes, is very, very important.
More importantly, though, it's my 36th anniversary.
Today. Oh, congratulations.
And you're here?
Celebrated last night. It's not a milestone.
May 33rd.
What?
So Bluebells of the Bend, as Tim had mentioned, Saturday, April 11th, SCPA hosted Bluebells of the Bend at River Bend Park. I believe from what Nigel told me, they were right after peak bloom of the bluebells, but you still got to see some. That's the issue with like the Cherry Blossom Festival was happening after so you can't really time it all that much. But it was a wonderful activity with a lot of people who came out to see the bluebells. Next slide. So also on Saturday the 18th, we had the Horse Expo, which is a wonderful event at Frying Pan Farm Park that brought thousands of people. I'll say thousands. I counted on my hands. It also welcomed Freedom and Liberty, which I actually got to meet, which is the Bureau of Land Management's 250th Horses and Borough Ambassador team, which is interesting because I met them that I thought after talking to them for a while, like, oh, you drove here from Wisconsin and they're driving all around the country going to events. So this was really a wonderful thing as a Mustang and a donkey. And so I got to meet both. So that was awesome. So Frying Pan. Oh, okay, go ahead. Yes.
Hi, I'm Paul Nicholson, the operations manager out here at Frying Pan Farm Park. The Park Authority is turning 75 years old this year, and we wanted to celebrate on the farm.
Hi, I'm Jay Cole. I'm the Executive Director of the Fairfax County Park Authority, and in addition to the 75th birthday year, which will be the 65th anniversary of Frying Pan Farm Park. For decades, this park has served our community as one of the only working farms in the area, and through rain, sleet, or huge snowstorm, our animals are well taken care of by fantastic employees like Elliot and Elena. So for the 75th birthday, I heard there's a cake.
There's definitely a cake.
All right.
Well, let's go check it out.
Let's go check it out. So this cake looks amazing. Tell me a little bit more about it.
We made this animal-safe cake with grains donated by a local brewery, and then also some fruit donated by a local food bank.
So it looks delicious, but not for us, for Lucy, and I don't think she's gonna wait much longer, so let's feed this pig this cake. Come on. Oh, okay,
All right.
okay.
You ready?
Lucy, look.
Help celebrate, Lucy.
Look.
That's when I got to go feed a pig a cake, but then it was embargoed. And so they were like, you can't tell anybody that you fed a pig a cake because we have to like be able to, like, I can't, Okay, but then it's like, that's harder than you think. Not tell people that you fed a pig a cake or not post pictures of you feeding a pig a cake until now. So just so you know, I did it though, Andy. Next slide. Okay, we had, as Tim also mentioned, we had the ribbon cutting at Mount Vernon Woods Park. Saturday, April 18th, celebrated the grand reopening of the newly reimagined Mount Vernon Woods Park. It was really a wonderful celebration and a wonderful event and a wonderful park. So at the park is a playground, which you can see behind us in that photo, parking lot, a shelter that is over top of us, a futsal / basketball court, and a skate park. And so we had skateboarding competition that was there. We had kids on the playground. It was you couldn't, if transformation of an area was a thing in the dictionary, like you open it up and it's Mount Vernon Woods Park. You could not have imagined what it would look like afterwards. That day is so indicative of what makes parks and Park Authority great. So from the morning, I opened Farmers Market with all the people who worked on that. Then we went to ribbon cutting for Mount Vernon Woods, and then we went to the horse show at Frying Pan Farm Park. And it's just like talking about all of the things that happen in the spring that staff have been working on for a year that really is coming to fruition. I love it when people say, "Oh, you're really busy." In the spring, because that's when they see the stuff. I'm like, well, the staff were really busy in the winter planning for it. I just like drove around to all of the stuff. So yes, we're busy all year, but it takes a long time and a lot of effort to put this through. So thank you to staff and everybody who did all the things the last few weeks. Next slide. Again, we opened Burke Farmers Market this morning. We opened Mount Vernon Farmers Market at 8 o'clock in the morning at Mount Vernon. Park. But yeah, it was fun. So Burke, if you've never been to Burke Farmers Market, it's one of the only ones on Saturdays. It's at the VRE station. It's enormous. I have a picture of it. It looks like a small city. It's the biggest farmers market that we have. It has everything. If you want a farmers market experience, definitely go to the Burke Farmers Market. These are the other
everything.
Everything. Go hungry. You can have food. You can have breakfast. You have stuff for lunch. You can have frozen meat. It is. I'll show you a picture. It's phenomenal. Here's a list of the other upcoming markets. Please let us know if you haven't, if you want to come to the opening for them. As I say all the time, I don't have bell envy. Anybody can ring the bell that they want. It really is a wonderful thing to see the amount of people. I think that they have, I don't know how many came through Mount Vernon, but it was a really great show out at Burke. They were waiting to get in, like they were ready to go. Next slide. And then here's a list of all of the other upcoming events that we have. Again, these are the farmers markets, Kingstown, McLean, Farmers Market. We have a public meeting for Audrey Moore happening at Wakefield Forest Elementary School. The Aiken Park Pavilion ribbon cutting is on May 2nd, which is also the anniversary, Deidria, of, is the second our anniversary? As our actual anniversary date? It's our actual anniversary date. The symbology of that is not lost on us, or we didn't not organize it. Aiken is the first park that the Park Authority acquired. And so having the opening for an improvement there on our birthday, it's wonderful. On Sunday, May 3rd, we had the Battle of the Badges, which is a park police department and the fire hockey game. An email I need to forward you guys today, just saying staff's praises on how wonderful everybody is. You know to forward that along. If you want to come, that's a really great charity event. And then the other farmers market, Wetland Awareness Day on May 3rd, which is also a wonderful event where everybody comes together and doing their own thing. At each individual nature center, they all come together for one thing. There's national parks and federal agencies. There's our nature centers, because if you're going to do Wetland Awareness Day, you do it at Huntley Meadow. And then High Bluff Valley Park ribbon cutting on Friday, May the 8th. An Asian American Heritage Month celebration at Mason District. Asian American, I got to get the acronym now.
Native Hawaiian.
Native Hawaiian Pacific Island. Yes, thank you. Celebration at Mason District on the 9th. Whew. Right? Yep. Okay.
Okay, now we're going around the horn. Faisal, you're up.
Nothing from me, sir. I'll pass.
Okay, Jose, anything? Cynthia?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Linwood. Mike? Yes. Rick?
Well,
Two things. I want to say, I hope the rain holds off on Saturday for Fairfax, because I plan to be there. And the second thing, as a point of personal privilege, last Thursday, I became a grandfather. First time, yes. Second one's coming in July.
Next time I need, by me, I mean Adria needs a photo, so we can put it into Director's Matters, be the kid.
Sure.
Rec Center.
Yeah. Missed anybody? I don't think so. That's it, right? Thank you. Congratulations. All right, we are now moving into closed session, and Dr. Jacobs Carter has a motion.
You ready? This is Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I move the Authority Board recess and convene in closed session for discussion and consideration of matters enumerated in
In the process.
We're recording.
Okay. Doors open? Doors open. Okay. Cynthia, please do.
This is Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I move the Park Authority Board return to open session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That vote carries. Now we certify topics discussed in session. Dr. Carter.
I move the Park Authority Board certify that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Virginia Code 2.2-3711, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the board.
Second.
So this is a roll call vote, and we'll go alphabetically. Bill Bowie.
Yes.
Dr. Carter.
Yes.
Dr. Linwood Gorham.
Yes.
Rick Healy.
Yes.
Faisal Khan.
Yes.
Jose Peralta.
Yes.
Mike Reynolds.
Yes.
Mike Thompson.
Yes.
Fiona Toomey.
Yes.
And the chairman votes aye as well. So may I have, let's see, I move that we authorize the offer range for properties in the Hunter Mill District as discussed, and the reallocation of funding as discussed in closed section.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries. And then
Another motion.
we have one more motion, which is on the budget item as presented by Josh during the budget committee discussion on bridging the current bond program with 2026 CIP approach. I move that we approve action item number 1 as presented to the budget committee and amended based upon the action taken during the closed session this evening, April 22nd, 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. We are at the end of our agenda. The meeting is adjourned at 8:34.
Thank you, sir.
Adjournment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jose, did you forget about you? About the corner, the